Yo, welcome back to my channel. It's me, Kay, and I'm here today to discuss The Shy Season 8, Episode 8. Y'all, we only have 2 episodes left in the season. It's crazy, but, I don't know, y'all. I'm still kind of processing the episode. I thought more would have happened. I am slightly underwhelmed with this episode. I thought more would have happened, but I don't want to ignore what happened, or I don't want to, glaze over things that did happen, because I think they are important to what will happen, of course, in the next 2 episodes. And at this point, I don't know, but maybe something will stand out to me, as we talk about today's episode. So, of course, the episode 8 picks up right at the end of episode 7, where Toussaint was at the door. And, of course, Bakari is at Nuck's apartment. She questions Bakari and she says, where's Nuck at? And Bakari said he don't know. And then she was like, did something happen to him? And he was just like, I can't say. And then she was just like, if you make me find out what happened, I'm going to be upset when you could just tell me now. She was like, because if I have to go looking for it, it's going to be more to it. And he was just like, you should go ask this girl. And she was like, who is that? Or something to that effect. And then she was like, you should go ask this girl what happened to him. So I was just like, oh, wow. Bakari, did you just snitch? And I'm just like, wow. But at the same time, I can't be mad at Bakari because Nuck was a snitch. I just didn't think he would tell. I mean, a season ago, when she tracked Bakari down and was looking for, I guess, Lene, or asking about what happened to Rob because they found his throw up, he didn't say anything. So I didn't think he would say anything now because she didn't have anything. But then, like I said last episode, we don't know Toussaint. Toussaint could have really been keeping tabs on Nuck and his apartment and everything, because he said in exchange for his protection, right? So they could have had eyes on his apartment and they've been seeing Bakari go in and out the apartment. And, she could have been watching the whole time. So if she came straight to Bakari and asked him, where was Nuck at, and he lied, she could have did anything, But I think because, Nuck had a rapport, and Bakari was like his right-hand man, I guess she tried to extend him grace, maybe. But it was just crazy that he just so willingly was like, go ask this girl. And I was just like, Bakari. I wasn't expecting that to go like that so soon. So we next see Keisha and Emmett laying in the bed, and Emmett is comforting Keisha, and Keisha is just really sad about what happened to Nuck. And of course, this is supposed to be the day of their bachelor and bachelorette parties. And so he was just trying to emphasize to Keisha that, he don't want to minimize what she's feeling, but he do want her to find the joy in, their day. My biggest thing about this was, I was just like, he's saying all of this knowing the truth. So I'm just wondering, when is he going to tell her? Because the longer he waits to tell her the truth, I don't know if when he does tell her the truth, is she still going to want to marry him? Because y'all know Keisha was tender about Nuck. So, I just don't know. I don't know. But she appreciates his advice. And, at the end of the day, they are lovers, but they are still friends, and they were able to, you know, piece it out or whatever. You know, they was very playful in that scene at the end. Next we see Trig having a conversation with Tiff, and I put that Trig tells Tiff that he doesn't want her working with Reg and that she can't protect him. And so basically, I feel like in this scene, you know, Tiff was kind of combative with Trig, because he was just like, whatever you got going on with, you know, your brother don't concern me. But at the same time, it's just like, you telling him you want him to protect you, and he's telling you the best way he can protect you, and you being combative with him about it. He know his brother better than anybody. So if he's telling you that his brother is dangerous and you shouldn't work with him, with that being your bodyguard, I think she should have taken heed. I don't necessarily think now, after seeing today's episode, that Trig would do anything to Tiff. But it's just the fact that, you know, he's telling you this because, you know, everybody in the city see it. And then, of course, Tiff, like, that was Nuck Op. So you supplying Nuck Op with supplies. You know what I mean? And, you know, not thinking nothing of it, you don't think that's going to make you look like a target. You know what I mean? And once Toussaint finds out that Tiff gave Reg, if that's the case for the next coming episodes, if Toussaint finds out that Tiff gave Reg the supplies, I wonder if that's going to, you know, make her, you know, her number one target. Shad sits down with the boys at the rec and is having a conversation with them. I just like this scene a lot because, you know, Shad, one thing that Shad has done throughout this series since he's been on the show is give back to the youth. Whether it was him looking out for Bakari, taking Bakari in, whether it was him working at the Rock Center with Tracy, you know, helping to volunteer there. And now, you know, him helping Riley at the center. I think, you know, with everything that Shad been through, even though the children at the center seem to be troubled youth or children who have seen a lot, I think he's the perfect person to work there because he's been through probably the same things and he can probably relate to the kids. And, you know, one thing about kids, when they do go through things, they respect and listen to people who have experienced those same things. They're always in a position where they can appreciate somebody who they can relate to. And so I thought that was perfect. And then, of course, just to see him, you know, having that relationship with Mondo because he is in a relationship with Mondo's mom. I think a lot of this puts things into perspective about, you know, Shad and what he wants in life. You know, he wants to be a family man. He wants to be a father. He wants to be there for patients. So I thought, you know, all of that was like done well. Next we see Angie and Smitty having a conversation. Angie is on her phone and Smitty is trying to talk to her. And so basically Smitty is just, to me, seeming very insecure in his relationship and, you know, as a man. I was kind of confused by the conversation a little bit because it was seeming like, you know, Angie was planning on being with Smitty for the long run when she's already married to Hannibal. And I know that her and Hannibal have an agreement, and I guess it ain't for me to really understand. But he was saying that he wanted her to be a kept woman. And I'm just like, isn't she already a kept woman with Hannibal? Hannibal is making mad money. Like, so now we don't see him on screen. He just ain't there and it's just over with. Like, I was kind of, you know, about that. You know, that's how I felt. But, you know, he was asking her who he was talking to. And she was just like, it's none of your business. And I like that Angie stood her ground with him because, you know, not that, I mean, she's already heard certain things about Smitty. But it's just the fact that, you know, she's still not letting, you know, this situation between her and Smitty change her to me. But nonetheless, he takes her phone and she tells him that she's talking to her sister and that she's thinking about, you know, helping her sister with opening more Smokies franchises with Emmett. And he was just like, well, why didn't you tell me? And she was just like, well, why do I need to tell you that? It's none of your business. And, you know, I agree because, you know, he was just like, I don't want you working. And I know that was a point of contention for Amaya, but this is something that, you know, Angie wants to do. And he was just like, well, I thought you said that you wanted to be a kept woman. And she was like, I do, but, you know, my sister wanted me to help, so I'm going to help her or whatever. And I just was like, that's fine. And then he was just like, well, I want to be able to make, you know, enough money for the both of us. And she was just like, well, until you do, then I'm going to work. And that was just the end of the conversation. But I was just like, you know what? She was on guard with him for sure, because the way he was talking to her was real sharp and rigid. And I was just like, Smitty, I don't need for you to pipe down. But he already knows how she feels about, you know, him being aggressive with women as well. Honestly, I don't even know why Angie is even entertaining this man at this point. Because once you find out a man is aggressive and he has put hands on women, there's no real difference if he, you know, there's no real difference. Once he put hands on somebody else, he'll put his hands on you. And so that should have been enough. To me, that should have been enough caution for Angie. But she said she got it, so she got it. Candace has a convo with Reg. She sees that Reg is just out of it, and Reg is kind of staring off into space. And so she asks him what's wrong, and he tells her nothing. And then she's just like, Reg, you know, I'm here, you can talk to me or whatever. And he was just like, that's why I don't like being with 1B, you know, because they always want to know everything. And she was just like, so are you cheating on me or something? And he was just like, no. And she was just like, well, why can't you just talk to me? He was just like, well, I miss my brothers. And she was just like, well, why don't you reach out to them? And he was like, I can't. And he was like, no. And she was like, why? He was like, because they don't accept who I am or something like that. And she was just like, well, why don't you just change who you are so you can be in your brother's lives? And he was just like, blood should be enough. And she was just like, well, it's not. It's not always enough. And I'm glad he heard that from somebody else, because a lot of people are under the, you know, assumption or the presumption or whatever. They under the guys that blood, whatever family does, blood should make you enough. And it's not. And I tell my family that all the time. Blood is not enough. Like, I don't care nothing about I am one of them chosen people. Like, I choose who I want to be around. I choose who I want to be in my life. Yeah, you might be kin to me, yes. But sometimes your kin, your blood, will be the one who do you the dirtiest. And so, as you can see, Reg has put Jake and Trig in a lot of messed up situations. And I ain't gonna say he didn't care, but he didn't think nothing of it, I guess, at the time. And he didn't think that the effects would be this long lasting to where they don't want nothing to do with him. And so now he feel isolated. And so, you know, I think that was an eye-opening conversation for him. And I think that he took heed to, you know, what was said, but, you know, he still was hesitant on acting on reaching out to his brothers. Next, we see Bakari and Brittany talking. Now, there's a movie in the back playing. Now, I'm not up on all my, like, 90s black movies. So I know who Lorenz Tate is, but my husband told me that this movie that was playing was Dead Presidents, and it was a specific scene where the police came to the door and started questioning some people. And I feel like that is, you know, of course, a good thing to know, because it's relevant to what's happening in the right now in the show. And, you know, a lot of the times with the shot, they pay homage to, like, vintage black movies. And so I like how they added that piece in there, because, you know, of course, we've seen the Juice references. Of course, we've seen the Minister Society references. Of course, we've seen the Cooley High references. So I feel like, you know, that was important. And I am going to have to do further research on that movie, because I have not seen that movie. I've seen all the other movies that they have referenced, though, in the shot. I've seen all the movies that they have referenced, except for that one. But yeah, like I said, I am going to have to do research on why that movie, in particular, the significance of that movie, because I have not seen that one. But Bakari is basically telling Brittany about, he's telling Brittany more, because, you know, last time we seen them talk in the last episode, he was kind of, you know, keeping Brittany out the loop. Well, basically, he ended up telling Brittany that, you know, he snitched. Now, I don't necessarily know if he told Tiff. I mean, I don't necessarily know if he told Brittany that Tiff was the one that did it, but he was the one. I'm assuming so, because Brittany's response was, so you a snitch, and he was just like, I don't care no more, I'm tired of running. And basically, he agreed to going to Atlanta with Brittany, and he was just like, I want Lene to come. And so now I'm confused. I'm just like, okay, so him and Lene is back cool now? Because, you know, at the party, the engagement party, it was, I got some place to stay, you don't need to worry about it. Now, I know they spoke at the party with the no phones party, and she touched his hand, but we didn't see nothing else after that. So I'm just like, okay, so I guess they back good now? But, he was telling Brittany was like, well, what if Tiff comes back and does something to you? And he was just like, I don't think she's gonna do nothing to me. And Brittany was like, Nuck probably thought that same thing. And so I'm just like, okay, that's powerful that she said that. Because I'm just like, they wouldn't have wrote that in there for no reason. So we cannot take the Tiff doing something to Bakari off the table. We cannot take that off the table. That is still on the table. I just, you know, we'll get there. Darnell asked Nuck. Okay, so the guys are sitting at I guess they're at Air Gold, maybe. They're getting ready. This is at the start of Emmett's, you know, bachelor party, and they all talking, they sitting out drinking and stuff. And Darnell asked about Nuck. So he said, how did Nuck take it? Because everybody know, you know, Nuck could be a little tender because Keisha's about to get married. So Darnell asked about it. He was like, I ain't seen Nuck. I ain't heard about it. And so Emma was like, I don't know, you know, or somebody said, I don't know. He might still be in his feelings, so he might still not be around or something like that. And Emma looked at Trig. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the way the seating was, I think Shaw was sitting in between Emmett and Trig. So there was a look exchanged. And so Emmett didn't say nothing. Emmett gets up from the table and goes to another bar. And Trig gets up and follows him. Shaw peeps what's going on, mind you. So, and by the way, I still can't believe Trig has not said nothing to Shaw about none of this. So, Shaw looks, you know, and so Trig is saying something to Emmett, and Emmett was just like, I gotta tell the truth. He was like, I can't keep keeping secrets. And so Trig was like, just wait until after the wedding. Then you can tell her. And I'm like, after the wedding? Emma was like, I'm not finna start my wedding on no lies. And then he was just like, and I don't know why you making Bakari take the fall. And Trig was like, he agreed to it. And I have a problem with that. Sidebar. Short sidebar. I have a problem with Trig. And you know, Trig is one of my favorite characters on the show. Okay? In my eyes, for the most part, he could do no wrong. But this, you know, I was understanding other things that Trig had done in the past because I felt like Trig had to do them from a place of survival. But now that Trig has wanted to change and become a different person, even though he still got his cape on because he tries to save everyone, I feel like it's hypocritical of Trig to go along with this story that Tiff has started about trying to frame Bakari. And the reason why I have a problem with it is because, one, Trig is going along with the punishment of Bakari because Bakari moved Rob's body, right? But let's not forget that, one, he just helped Shad move Alicia's body. Even though neither one of them did it, he still helped move the body. Number 2, let's not forget that a couple of seasons ago, when Duda took out Q, who was Alicia's brother, the main reason why Alicia was going after Duda, seeking vengeance, let's not forget that, when Duda took out Q, or when Duda pew-pewed Q and put Q in the back of the trunk, he had Trig to drive the car with him. Mind you, Trig was trying to run for office during this time. He had Trig drive the car. When they got to the destination, Q was still breathing. Q was still alive. Duda pew-pewed Q a couple of more times in front of Trig and told him to help him dump the body in the river. So, to me, that whole situation was the exact same thing that Bakari did. The only difference was Rob was already deceased when he helped Nuck put Rob's body on Alicia's porch. Also, when the feds came to Trig asking him, we got photos of you at the scene where Q's body was. Somebody saw you. Did you help Duda? He didn't snitch on Duda. Right? So how can Trig be in the position, when he was in that position earlier with Duda, how can he put Bakari in that same position, knowing that Bakari didn't do it? Just like we knew that you didn't do whatever you did to Q. And then Bakari said last week that if he didn't do it, or if he would have said anything, Nuck would have offed him. The same thing with Duda, with Trig. So I'm just like, Trig, how can you be okay with doing this? Whether or not it's your homeboy, baby mama, soon to be wife, and then his ex-wife's child's father. You know what I mean? So it's just, I feel like the whole situation just messed up. I couldn't just believe that Trig was just doing this. But he telling him to wait till after the wedding and say something to Keisha. That's not gonna fly. So now I'm like, at this point, if Emmett keeps all of this in, which I don't think he will, I'm afraid Keisha's gonna call the wedding off. Because you can obviously see, like Emmett can obviously see how this has affected Keisha and how she is grieved by this, So, of course, we're going back and forth between the bachelorette and the bachelor party. At the bachelor party, Darnell hires this. He says that his son is a changed man or a reformed man. Instead of hiring exotic dancers, he hired a sexy magician. So the magician is there throughout the bachelor party performing tricks. They're playing poker and everything. So she's doing X, Y, and Z at the party. Okay? Now, while this is going on, Tiff has thrown like this relaxation spa type party for the girls. They're getting their nails done. They're getting their toes done. The dude who used to date Jada was there. I forgot his name, but he's there as a masseuse. I was like, okay, let him look at him getting a little nod. Okay, period. They got a masseuse, the girls are chilling, they having a conversation, and then we get to, that one scene that was in the trailer that was dropped yesterday. The girls are discussing, marriage, partnership, having children or wanting children or not wanting children. And then it gets to this part of the conversation where Amaya says something about Smitty and her baby daddy, who is Rafi, of course we know. And Angie was like, well, I'm dating Rafi. And Maya was like, well, just don't let him put his hands on you. And Chanel looks at her and says, if he was to ever do that, we would take him out. And then Tiff says, sometimes you just got to take a dude out. And I'm like, Tiff, you cool? Because you just dropped your mask in front of everybody, sister. And Keisha looked. So I'm just like, is 2 plus 2 equaling 4 for Keisha? Because the way she looked, I'm just like, Keisha, don't glaze over that, sister. Because that was an open admission. She let that Florida get that. She had a Freudian slip. So I'm just like, okay, how is Keisha going to react? So then, you know, the camera pans back to the party. The party, Emmett's in them party is over with. And Emmett notices that his watch is missing. So immediately, I'm like, oh my God, the magician stole Emmett's watch. And as y'all know, the watch is like Emmett's version of an engagement ring. And so Emmett is distraught because now he's like, Keisha's going to be devastated that I don't have this watch. So they asking Darnell, who is this girl? And here I am thinking Darnell is a reformed man, but Darnell still has some ways that he got to let go. And he has a tendency of messing with sketchy people. So it's just like when, it kind of reminded me of when Darnell bought Damien around knowing what Damien did or what Damien was going through, and he didn't say nothing to Emmett. Emmett had to find out along the way. You know, same thing with the magician. Darnell didn't know this magician. He didn't know this magician from Johnny. But he had her there because he followed her on IG and she was DMing him. And basically the lady was a thief. She done stole Emmett's watch. And Emmett's watch was vintage. Therefore, it was a high price or had some kind of value. At first, she took, chain off his neck. So I'm just like, dang, did she take his chain off his neck and replace it with another chain? And he ain't noticed. I'm just like, dang. But anyway, nonetheless, the watch is gone, child. They searched all over for it, but then they come to the conclusion that the magician stole it. So then we back at the bridal bachelorette party. And the girls are giving Keisha her flowers. And then Tiff makes this speech, right? And it was a speech from the heart. It was heartfelt. But I'm just like, it's just so crazy hearing Tiff say these words to Keisha knowing what she did. You know? That's such a huge conflict. Like, it's such a conflict of interest. But she was saying how, you know, Emmett was not perfect for her. You know, in the beginning, she was jealous. Now, mind you, again, I said this a couple episodes ago. I will never be that mature. Their relationship. I just still find it weird that Emmett's ex-wife and his future wife are just so close. Because when we first met Tiff and Keisha, they didn't know each other. So I'm just like, friends, I feel like it's a stretch. A maid of honor, I feel like is a stretch. I understand that, you know, you took care of her child and stuff like that. I mean, obviously, if you want to be in Emmett's life, he comes with kids. So you have to be willing to take them kids and raise them as your own. I mean, a proper person would do so. But, you know, her standing there saying, I was jealous of you. You know, I always was jealous because, you know, even when Em and I was together, he never treated me the way he treated you. But as time went on, you know, I come to love you. You like my best friend. And, you know, I'm so happy for you. I thank you for your grace. All this stuff. Like, I mean, it was a beautiful speech. But I'm just like, girl, you laid it on real thick to be the taker-outer of her baby father. You know what I mean? And so I'm just like, wow. And, you know, Keisha is just floored. And, you know, I put this relationship between Tiff and Keisha is weird. The bridesmaid speech. Because, you know, Tiff is her maid of honor. And so Tiff, of course, was the host. She put all of this together. She did a beautiful job, you know, making sure that everything was up and running and flowing the way it should. But it's just like, dang, you know what I mean? Dang. And so I'm just like, it's crazy to see, you know, how all this is going on. You know what I mean? And she's still making stuff happen, even though she, you knows she did enough. So, Emmett and Darnell are gone from the party, and it's just Trig and Shad. And so, as I mentioned before, Shad peeped something was going down. He was trying to read lips for real when Emmett and Trig was talking earlier. So Shad asked Trig again, bro, you good? Trig was just like, yeah, I'm fine. You know, it's a lot going on. And then he was like, you know, Emmett got a lot on his back, but he'll be good after the wedding over. Trig, what? And Shaw was just like, okay. He knows something going on. I'm just ready for Shaw to pull Trig card for real. Well, who knows if that's even gonna have. It's only 2 episodes left, so. Keisha and Emmett get back home and they laying in the bed, and you know, Keisha was feeling a little fresh, you know what I mean? And so her and Emmett started playing, and you know, she noticed that Emmett's watch was gone, and so she asked what happened to his watch, and Emmett was about to lie. And then he just flat out told her, you know, there was this magician at my party, and I think she stole my watch. And Keisha was mad because she was like, Emmett, that was vintage. And he was just like, I'm sorry. And then they just laid there and she was mad. And I was like, dang, Emmett. But he knew Keisha was going to be mad. You know, that's like his engagement ring. She was just like, how would you feel if I would have lost your mother's ring? And he was like, I would have been devastated. And she was like, exactly. And I feel like that was a fair argument. But hopefully, you know, Keisha got the watch insured and she can get another one. So there is a scene where Tiff is with Trig, or no. Trig is at the house with Tiff and he gets a phone call. He's talking on the phone and he looks distraught. And all I heard was something about come identify the body. When I tell you my heart sank, I was like, was it Reg or was it Jake? Which one was it? I didn't think it was going to be Peaches! Trig tells Tiff, I just got a call from a detective. They told me that my mom OD'd and I got to go to the hotel and identify the body. And, you know, if you can call back to previous seasons, Peaches has made a return in multiple seasons. And we all know Peaches struggled with addiction. And she will always get clean and then, you know, relapse. And so this was one thing that Trig always was afraid of, but he knew could be a possibility. And I think that's why he is the way he is about saving people and being that protector, or, you know, being there for his brothers, especially Jake. And so with this being the reality, I think, you know, I know all the boys are going to be hurt, but because Trig is the oldest, he's probably going to feel the most pain out of all of the boys, because all he wanted was for his mama to do right by them. And because the last encounter that we saw Trig have with Peaches, it wasn't the best. He was very sharp with her. And so I think hopefully Trig is able to grieve and not internalize all of this, because he stayed pretty even keel, like with finding out the news. He wasn't emotional. But even though he did not speak to Reg, or him and Reg wasn't speaking, the first person he called was Reg. And so I feel like there's something to that. Because even though you not speaking to your brother, you didn't just let him find out any other way. He had the decency to call him. And that's where I feel like that the blood thing kind of that Reg was talking about applied. You know what I mean? I know it's his mama. You know what I mean? But people have to recognize the dynamics of their relationship. There was never a doubt in my mind that Trig, there was never no doubt in my mind that Trig won't want to call and tell Reg. That's not what I'm saying. My thing is, I'm saying when they called him to go identify that body, he called Reg to go with him to identify the body. And that spoke volumes. And he sat down with Reg afterward to figure out how they were going to tell Jake. And so to me, I felt like progress was made. I hate that Peaches had to lose her life in order for this dynamic for them to change. But the number one thing when Reg and Trig were speaking was they was like, how I'm going to tell Jake? How we going to tell Jake? And then Reg, super emotional. Now, y'all know that Trig always thought that Reg was his mama favorite. And with Reg being the middle child, I'm thinking Reg probably had a more closer relationship with their mom. But, you know, if we could call back a couple seasons, Reg was always protective over Peaches. Y'all remember that one time that boy went and sold Peaches that street candy? And, you know, in exchange for her to do some pleasantries to him. And Reg found out about it and he burned him with that cigarette. Reg did not play about Peaches. And he made it adamant, do not sell her nothing. He was like, you can sell, basically he said you can sell to the other fiends, but don't sell to Peaches. You know what I mean? And so Reg, emotionally distraught. His mother is gone. And he even brings up to Trig during that sit down that the last thing you said was you yelled at her. Or was that Jake? One of them said it. But nonetheless, Reg was like, I can't tell Jake. I need you to do it. And Trig was like, you got to be a man, Reg. You got to man up. And then he was just like, but I just can't do it. And he was just like, well, how about you just be there with me when I tell him? And of course, Reg agreed. Now, when the conversation did happen with Jake, Reg was more vocal than I thought he was going to be. He handled it better, but I do think that he did that for Trig. So I do think there's some forward movement happening with the brothers. I do think this will bring them closer together. You know, Reg has been saying for the last couple of episodes that he wanted to, you know, speak with his brothers or have a relationship with them. We didn't see that Shad found out this episode, so I'm interested to see how Shad will react to the news, and if he'll say anything else to Reg, you know. But I thought that, you know, this whole scene was just touching. Riley has a conversation with Shad about being a counselor at the center. And I put that reminds me of the Rock Center. But like I said earlier, it's a paid job. Come to find out, you know, there was a conversation that Darnell had with Shad about Peaches and, you know, him being happy for him, that, you know, he's in a happy relationship. Shad is ready to be a father. You know, he said he could always see him as a father. And so I felt like there was alludements to Darnell possibly giving Shad his house. Because as you know, Shad is still living, you know, with Jake at Vic's house. And so, you know, I feel like Shad Riley offering or telling Shad about this position, about being a counselor. It's a paid position. I feel like this is just the start he needed. Because we've been seeing Shad ever since he got out of jail. We've been seeing him trying to get on his feet. And he was stable while he was a security for Alicia. But then, of course, like, you know, all of that fell off when Alicia passed. So, I'm just happy to see, you know, and plus, it's a meaningful job, you know. It's something he enjoys doing. And he was telling Riley he's willing to do whatever to put in the work, you know, to get this job or to do the job. And so I was happy for Shad. I'm just so happy for him. We love to see a comeback story. You know what I mean? We love restoration in people's lives. We love when people heal. You know what I'm saying? And so it was just, you know, I was pleased. I was pleased to say this. I was pleased. Bakari sits down with Jake, and Jake tells him about his mom, and so Bakari basically is, you know, comforting him. But my thing is, where was Papa at? Y'all just left Papa out? That's been Papa homeboy since they was babies, bro. Papa won't dare to cover his homeboy. His homeboy was there for him when his daddy passed. Y'all ain't let Papa be there for him when his mama passed. His mama OD'd, bro. And see, the thing was, I had predicted Papa OD'ing. I didn't think or consider Peaches at all. So Peaches OD'ing, but then that worries me that Papa wasn't there, because where was Papa at? Don't tell me Papa can't slide the glory on accident either. Where was he at? Don't play. Bakari goes to visit Lene. You know, I mentioned earlier that Bakari and Lene were on good terms. Bakari does not tell Lene everything this time. Bakari just tells Lene that, you know, he had a conversation with Brittany. Brittany wants him to move to Atlanta, and he wants Lene to move to Atlanta with them. And so, Lene's like, why? Do you have a job? You know, she's asking all the practical questions. He was like, nah, I'm going to go down there. I'm going to get something legal. And so she was like, okay. She was going to go. So I'm like, okay, we moving to Atlanta. All right. We see Shaw sit down with Patience. And Patience is, you know, talking to him. And he tells Patience that he's ready to be a family. And she was like, you know, that's a big commitment, right? You know, Shaw, this is all Shaw ever wanted, you know. He's dated a few women on the show. And, you know, he's been trying to get it right. But, you know, I think he gonna get it right for Patience. You know, Patience is a woman of substance. Not to say the other women wasn't. But Patience is a lawyer. You know, she works hard. She wants to be in a committed relationship. She wants to be loved. She has a son. She wants to make sure her well-being, her son's well-being is, you know, the priority. And, you know, Shaw loves Mondo now. They have a good rapport with each other. And so, you know, why the heck not? You know what I mean? Everybody deserves to be loved. Bakari visits Reg. Now, this little encounter had me a little on the edge of my seat, not gonna lie. Cause, you know, Reg, y'all know how Reg is very chaotic. Very chaotic. He brings him his money and he tells Reg he's done. I did not think Reg was gonna accept that answer. But at the same time, Reg just seemed like he was just over everything at the point. And Reg told Bakari, I don't care what you do. And so Bakari was like, I'm sorry to hear about your mom. And Reg softened a little bit. He told Bakari to take care of himself. And Bakari said he was going to try. And my husband said to me that he thinks that because of what happened to Peaches, he thinks Reg is going to get out the game. And I thought that was a valid point to make. Because he might, you know. He's known his mama has struggled with addiction for a while. And then he's out here selling street candy. So he's not helping the situation. You aiding people who struggle with the same thing your mama struggled with. So maybe that was an opening experience for him, you know? Toussaint visits Tiff, and she asks Tiff a couple questions. And, you know, Tiff held her ground. She was just like, I don't know nothing. I don't know where he at. You know what I mean? She was like, and I'm not talking to you without no lawyer present. And, you know, Toussaint just went on about her business. Tiff closed that door. Tiff was shaking. She was shaking in her boots. Because now it's getting real. Tiff might go to jail. It's a possibility. Tiff might go to jail. I'm surprised, though, that when she came to ask Tiff so gung-ho on throwing Bakari under the bus, she ain't throw Bakari under the bus, though. You know what I mean? Thought that was noticeable. But I wonder how it's going to go once she tells Trig that Toussaint came. Or what she going to do? Is she going to freak out? She going to panic? She going to leave? You know what I mean? What's she going to do? I'm surprised Emmett did not confront Tiff this episode, because I just knew that after that conversation that Emmett had with Trig last episode, I just knew that he was going to confront Tiff about what she did, because he knows that she did it. But he ain't said nothing yet, or I don't know if he will say anything. I was hoping he would, though, because, you know, he knows that she playing in Keisha's face. Keisha tells Emmett that she's glad he came clean about the watch. And she was just like, I know you changed because the old you would have lied about telling me about the watch. And I'm just like, while she's saying that, this song by Babyface starts playing, I'll never keep a secret, I'll never tell you lies, I only want to be with you. I'm like, oh Lord. Y'all know, y'all love to throw a song in with some lyrics that's somewhat relative to what's going on in this plot. I'm like, my God. So she was just like, no, she said that earlier in the episode. She asked Emmett, do you have anything you need to tell me? I'm just like, at this point, is Keisha playing with Emmett? Like, is this a mind game? Or do she know what's really going on? Is she checking his temperature to see if he gonna say something? Or is this all just a coinky dink? Like I told y'all in the beginning, I'm still processing. I don't know. Are we gonna get a fume for Peaches on screen? Or are they just gonna bury Peaches? You know, who gonna be Tiff's lawyer? We found out last episode that Trig and Shaw found out that it was Rosalind who took Nora out. Is Rosalind gonna make her appearance? Because Rosalind has still yet to make an appearance on screen, and we got 2 episodes left. We haven't seen Rafi since episode 4. I think it was episode 4 when Bakari beat him up. Is Rafi gone, you know, do something to Bakari? That's still on the table. We still worried about Tiff possibly doing something to Bakari. Will Smitty find out that Tiff is doing business with Reg? So many things, you know. The wedding planner still has to take a tour of Tiff's house. That was said last episode. Is that gonna happen in episode 9? Me and my husband was thinking, right? I was like, well, somebody said something about them doing the wedding venue and calling Nuck phone. If Nuck phone's still in his body, they might hear it ring. And I'm just like, At this point, Nuck been dead for weeks. His phone should be dead. But then I was just like, if somebody was to do Find My iPhone, though, you know, sometimes with Find My iPhone, if the phone is dead, you still able to track the phone. But then he was like, well, since he was an informant, they could try to track his phone and ping his phone to see where his last location was at. And I was like, oh, I didn't think about that. Because, you know, everywhere you go, your phone pings a tower. So they can immediately know, like, if they're looking for you, they can find you if they want to. Or if they need to prove that you were somewhere at a certain time, they can timestamp and ping your phone and see. We can check the tower and ping your phone and see where you was at that time. So I'm just like, dang, I wonder what's going to happen. You know, anything can happen. They could be in the middle of the wedding and Toussaint can break up the wedding and be like, Tiffany, you under arrest for the murder of Nuck. And then I was thinking, y'all know, like, at the end of season, was it end of season 3? I want to say it was end of season 3. Y'all know at the end of season 3, when Ronnie was getting ready to go to Alabama or where his family's from, he was finna take Tracy and he was finna move down south. Ronnie was about to start his new life and Bakari came out of nowhere and took him out. I'm wondering if we see all the wedding, we see all these happy moments, and then we get that final scene where Bakari and him about to move to Atlanta. And that's when Bakari go down at the end of the show. I wonder if that's going to happen. And then it be Nuck. Or I wonder if, you know, if they will let Bakari make it. Because, you know, sometimes in the street life, when a person's trying to get a redemption arc, they actually get redemption. You know, they've been through a lot of things. And some people make it. They get out unscathed. Everybody, you know, there are a few percenters who don't die or go to jail. There are some people who make it. Will Bakari make it and then push his book once he moves to Atlanta and start a new life? Because y'all know at the end of Cooley High, you know, the dude who was the poet was able to leave and go to Hollywood. You know, he visited his friend grave or whatever. Will they give Bakari that storyline? Or will it be like Menace to Society when he was about to leave and move and they got him in the yard? Anything can happen. Oh, God. And then I was talking to my husband. I was just like, you know what? We see so many people have respect for Shad because that's Trig man. People don't extend Bakari that same thing for being Jake man. You know what I'm saying? Like, Reg had a lot of respect for Shad because that's his brother best friend. But Bakari was Jake's best friend, and they didn't extend Bakari no grace, Reg or Trig. And I'm just like, dang, that's your brother, man. You know what I'm saying? That's your brother, man. You don't care about what happened to him? You know, when they was little, you know, Reg used to look out for Papa and Kevin because that was his little brother friends. You know what I mean? And I know they're grown now, but, you know, they still extend that same grace to Shad. I'm like, dang, Trig, that's messed up. But yeah, y'all, that's all I have for this episode, I think. Drop your comments down below. Let me know what you thought of the episode. And what do you think will happen in the final 2 episodes. I might switch up what I do for the final 2 episodes. Ugh. But yeah, y'all. Like, comment, and subscribe. And drop your comments down below. And let me know what you thought of the episode. And I'll be back next week for episode 9. Deuces.